What it comes down to is it a person, yes or no? From conception to birth, is it a person? If it's not a person, then who the hell are you to tell me what to do with my bodily functions? If it is a person, then it has protections that supersede somebody else's opinion about it. And that's where the entire heart of the issue is. Is it a person or not? And the reason this thing is so bloody hard is because from conception to birth, there is no single day or event that happens. There's no switch. There's no mile marker that gets passed. It is a perfect spectrum of absolute uniformity between a cell that splits in half and a little baby that comes crying into the world. And this is why this issue is such a bear.
Right. Okay, well, for the first 3 months you can have abortion, but then if the government then says, all right, but if the magic moment, whatever you want to call it, is 3 months, well, now and we're not going to let you have an abortion, does the state now have a responsibility? Now, as a small government guy and more of a libertarian, you probably don't want the state to have a responsibility, but at the same time, if the state is saying you got to do it, then do we have a responsibility? I would probably argue yes, again, begrudgingly. So
I had an interesting thought about the abortion issue because it got to me the question of the whole person issue, and maybe this will help people who are on the pro-choice side understand the pro-life position, at least understand it, and if not agree with it. I'm certainly not expecting them to agree with it, but at least understand it. And my position, my thought experiment was this: whose side were you on in the Civil War?
Well, most people will say the North.
As was I.
Yeah,
100%. Now, the South claims that the North launched this war of aggression because they wanted to secede and state rights and all of that. But the reason the South left the Union was they wanted the states' rights, and the state right was the state right to have slaves. So let's just call it what it is. Mm-hmm. They left before Lincoln was even inaugurated. If you're a Southerner, your position was, this is my property, and they're going to launch a war and come all the way down to my house and take my property, then of course it's aggression. Of course I'm going to fight it, right? The North's position is the same position, actually, as the pro-life crowd, which is that is a living person there, and you do not own them, and you do not have a right to determine their destiny. Therefore, we have a right to go down and free the slaves. We have not only a right, we have an obligation. And so now what you find out is that the motivation of the Civil War comes down to a very simple issue. Are slaves people, yes or no? Because if slaves are not people, if blacks from Africa are not people, if they're not humans, then they're property, like horses and cattle and so on. The North is absolutely wrong. The war is completely unjust and so on. But if they are people, then the North has the moral right and the obligation to have the government step in on that person's individual choice and protect that individual. That's the fundamentals of the pro-life position, is that it has its own unique genetic code. It cannot defend itself. It is no longer subject to your choice. It's a person, and we're gonna protect it. Is it a person? Isn't it? How do I know?
Yeah.
We know conception and we know birth, and that's all. And because the spectrum is uninterrupted, we find ourselves in this horrible conundrum, which puts me against my desire to protect innocent lives that can't defend themselves, against the disgusting, repulsive idea that any institution, including the government, gets to tell you what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, and that's why it's such a rich one to talk about.